Hello, class. This is the lecture for week 5 of the Data-Driven Leadership course. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, do you see my slides?
Yeah.
Okay, great. The the slides that we have here for week 5 and 6, they really should help guide you through the signature assignment, the major signature assignment, which is the analysis and the analysis report. We're going to talk a little bit about what are performance analyses and what are needs assessments, when to use them, and how to use them. And then we'll talk a little bit about the signature assignment. There's 2 signature assignments. One of them's a lot more time consuming than the other one. So we're going to talk about the one that really is the time consuming signature assignment. The second one is only a memo that's due, I believe, in week 8, and it's far less time consuming. So what we're doing for this assignment is we're doing either a performance analysis or we're doing a needs assessment. Now, they're really the same process. It's just a matter of what level you're looking at the problem from, and also which author you're reading. If you read Roger Kaufman's work, he refers to these as needs assessments. If you read Roger Chevalier's work, he will refer to them as performance analyses. We use a lot of Roger Chevalier's work in this class, and including his book. So that term might be preferred in this instance. However, I'll accept either. And I like to distinguish it, like I said before, based on the level that you're looking at the problem from. If you're looking at it from a strategic level of an organization, you can also add the word strategic in front of needs assessment, and it can be a strategic needs assessment, which is a term that I was very familiar with when I was in the Coast Guard, because that's what we called it in the Coast Guard. So as I mentioned before, it's really based on the levels that you're looking at the problem. If you're looking at an individual's performance, or even a particular job, one particular job, for example, a cashier at Safeway, if you're looking at just that job should be the same for all the people that fill that role. So in that case, I would refer to it as a performance analysis. However, if you're looking at collecting all the gaps that Safeway has in terms of performance to reach a certain goal, say a revenue goal or something like that, then I would refer to it as a needs assessment, because there's probably multiple jobs that are involved with that particular assessment. As I mentioned before, we're going to be doing a lot of looking at Roger Chevalier's work, and he uses the word performance analysis. He has a good video that I have a link to from the International Society for Performance Improvement, ISPI. He was a regular at their conferences all the way up until, I think, probably a year or two before he died of natural causes, but and health issues, which was about 2 years ago. we'll read Roger's 2014 paper that he had published in the ISPI journal titled Performance Improvement. And these are all available on week 5 or 6 in the course. What is a performance analysis or needs assessment? It is a systematic process. So systematic in that you can basically go step by step through the process. And then it's also systemic, and systemic being that it's trying to encompass all things that could be affecting the particular performance. It's ideally suited for anything from the tactical level, from the operational level, say the cashier at Safeways, once again, all the way up to the strategic level. If you've ever been involved with the strategic planning process, usually a strategic planning process is one in which you start with the very high level, defining your goals, defining your values before that, and then working your way all the way down to the performance. So either way, you can use this process. It looks like this. Starts off with a gap analysis, and then the next step would be a cause and a force field analysis. The force field analysis is the forces that are behind the cause. So you might have one cause that is very strong, has a very strong effect on the performance. You might have another cause that has very minimal effect on the performance. The force field analysis is an attempt to try to quantitate whatever that force is on the performance. And like I said, to quantify that force. The next phase is the intervention, selection, and design and development. And this would follow the causes because you want those interventions to be specific to address those causes. Finally, or not finally, but the next step would be implementation of the recommendations or the solutions. And then after that, you would evaluate what you've done, and if needed, make adjustments, and then go back to the intervention or selection and design and development phase. So that there could very well be an arrow that goes up from the evaluation process right back up to the intervention, selection, and design development phase. The gray areas on this slide we will not be doing in this class. I just wanted to make you aware of these. In the first phase, when we define the performance gap, it's going to look a little bit like this. We're going to have our desired performance, and we're going to have our current level of performance. There's going to be a gap in between in terms of the distance between those two. And that's what we call the performance gap. A lot of times that performance gap might be considerable. And in those cases, what we would be looking for is a goal that we can achieve within, say, 3 years, something short, fairly short term, where we can achieve it. We don't want a goal that's going to take 10 years to get there. That can still be our goal, but we want to, that could still be our desired performance, but we still want a goal that's a little more fits that idea of a SMART goal. SMART being the A being achievable, attainable. Also, as part of the gap analysis, we're going to look at trends. In other words, we are looking at the problem, say at the point of the intervention. See um, that dot right in the middle of the graph. If we just looked at it from then on, then we don't really take into account what the trends are for that particular performance, and therefore we leave a lot of possibilities for misunderstanding the intervention, the effects of the intervention. By incorporating the trend analysis, we are able to better say with confidence that our intervention had some effect on the performance. And just to this is probably self-explanatory, but I'll just real quickly. If we have a downward trend in performance, that's a negative thing. And at the time of intervention, we would hope to see that downward trend either become level off or maybe even go upward. If we just saw a leveling off and we didn't look at the trend analysis, and we just saw a leveling off of performance, we might assume that the intervention had no effect, when in fact it actually helped correct a downward trend. And by the same token, if we have an upward trend in the past and then we analyze it and design some interventions and implement it, and then all of a sudden we see more upward trend, we might assume too much into how effective our intervention was. So you can see how that the trend analysis is important to take into account. Once we're done with our cause analysis or our gap analysis, we're going to move into a phase of the causal analysis or cause analysis. What we're doing here is we're looking to uncover the root causes for the performance problem. If you are at a golf course and your job is to maintain the golf carts, and the performance you're looking at is that at the end of each day, the golf carts are dirty. There's trash in the golf carts and whatnot. You could look at that and say, well, there's trash in the golf carts. Let's just fix that. But by doing a cause analysis, you would go back and find out, well, why is there trash in the golf carts? Is it because employees don't have enough time to clean out the carts? Is it because there aren't any trash cans, perhaps, nearby where the employees could empty the trash? Is it because they were never told that they have to empty the trash from the golf carts? So there's all these potential causes to that problem of trash in the golf cart. And until we start asking, well, why? Why do these problems exist? And we ask the right people, i.e. the employees, why these problems exist, we're not really going to know for sure why we're having that performance problem. When we look at the causal analysis, or when we do it, we're going to be using Thomas Gilbert's engineering model. This one's adapted by Roger Chevalier. And it's really what Roger did was just update the language. Gilbert's model has been around since the 1970s, I believe, maybe even the 50s. And so Roger's just taking words that we use today and swapping those in for perhaps some outdated behavioristic type words that were more common decades ago. So what we see here is 6 boxes, and that's what we refer to the Gilbert model as, the 6 boxes. And 3 are within the realm of the environment, and 3 are within the realm of the individual. And you can think of the individual as the worker or the performer. Over the years, since the model has been has been published and used by people in the training world and also the performance improvement world. Study after study has validated that about 85% of the performance problem causes are found in what's referred to as the environment. And this is information, resources, and incentives. And about only 15% are found within the realm of the performer or the worker or the individual. And those are knowledge, capacity, and motives. This is very important to the whole idea of the performance analysis, because if you can understand that that 85% of the problems could be caused and therefore corrected by interventions that address the environment, then you really don't need to do what a lot of people want to do right off the bat, which is training. If you listen to the news whenever there's a problem with any type of organization, the first thing they're going to ask is, are the people properly trained? And this is an important question to ask, but it's also inefficient to really address the entire problem. How many of you have been through some sort of training in the workplace where it was just a check the box type of event? Could have been computer based, it could have been face-to-face training, but it was just a let's dip all these employees in this training and we'll call it good, without really looking at how the whatever problem or opportunity they want to address could be addressed in the environment. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we call training that are found in the environment that are very helpful. There are some very helpful things. If you think about an employee manual or some sort of checklist or guide in the workplace, that would actually be an environmental intervention because it exists in the environment. It's not part of what the person brings to the job in terms of their capacity, their knowledge, or their motives. I get in here into the slides with some questions that we could ask. Some of them are open-ended, some of them are direct follow-up questions. Roger Chevalier recommended that we start with a open-ended question. How are performance expectations communicated to employees? It leaves it very open so that whoever's answering that question could really add whatever they want to that question. But then you follow up with some more direct questions. Have clear performance expectations been communicated to employees? As yes or no? Do employees understand the various aspects of the roles and the priorities for doing them? Once again, yes or no? Are there clear and relevant performance aids to guide the employees? Yes or no question. By asking these direct questions, which I think a lot of surveys and consultants might miss, you get very granular data. You can find out exactly where the roots of the problem exists. If it's, for example, that there aren't any aids to help with information, number 3 would bring that out. And then you could look at the need for performance aids in the workplace. Once again, we do these questions for all 6 boxes of the Gilbert model. So the first one was information, the second one resources, the next one incentives, and then we get to the individual: motives, capacity, and skills and knowledge. Skills and knowledge is where you're going to find the training causes. Do the employees have the knowledge necessary to be successful at their jobs? Yes or no? A lot of times you will see a mixture of a solution. So it might include some training, but then also if we go back to information, it might include some job aids or guides in the workplace as well. Once we have our causes, what we do is we want to figure out or at least quantify the forces of those causes. Are they major causes? Are they more minor causes? And the way we do that is through that force field analysis. This is a Roger Chevalier developed method, and the way he liked to do it is he liked to draw a line, and then he liked to draw the forces affecting the line. The line would be the performance, where we currently are. And if you have forces driving towards the performance gap or towards the performance solution, those would be positive driving forces. If you have forces that are actually working against the closing that gap, then those would be restraining forces. The length of the arrows actually is important. The longer the arrow, the greater the force. So if we look at the first arrow, it's a -6 on the negative side, the restraining forces, and we got a positive, like 2.5, it looks like, on the positive side. So right there, you would have a net negative on that. The restraining force is greater than the driving force. You won't always have arrows on both sides of these. And by the way, each arrow, when you do this, will be tied to a particular cause. So that's what you don't see here. And on the worksheets that I've included, which were developed by Roger Chevalier, this force field analysis is turned 90 degrees. So you're going to see it, the arrows coming from right and left instead of up and down. Here's what it'll look like. So you can see you have your 6 boxes: information, resources, incentive. The next slide would be the next 3. And then you have these standard areas within each of those boxes: expectations, feedback, relevant guides, and performance management system. That would all be under information. And then each one of those has a line or a row where you can draw a driving or restraining force. Here's the other 3. This is what it looks like in a table format. Once you get to the intervention selection phase, you want to develop, brainstorm, if you will, a list of interventions that address the causes that you uncovered. Once you have that list, then you can analyze that list and find out if there is any overlap. For example, if we go back to my example about the a cause being closed, or that gap being closed on the information side and also on the skills and knowledge side, you might have one solution that addresses both of those. You might say, well, skills and knowledge, we really don't want them to be trained too much because they're going to forget it. But we want them to go to a short training, and at that training, we're going to go ahead and introduce them to this new guide that we're going to have in the workplace, this job aid. And so the training is actually how to use that job aid that's in the environment. So that would be an example of a solution that actually addresses both those causes. Here's a graphical representation of where you kind of want to focus your energy to get the biggest, the most leverage on your interventions. If you go out on the away from the triangle to the right into the environmental factors, you're going to get more leverage on those particular solutions than you are the ones closest to the triangle, which in this case would be knowledge. And I don't know if I said this before, but there's been studies that show that training, that organizations spend a lot of money on training, and it's not the most effective solution. So by looking at this, you can see the biggest bang for your buck is going to be out there in the environmental area. Once you get your performance analysis done, so I didn't really talk too much about how you're going to do it, but we talked about the process, the systematic process. When you go through this process, you might want to do a survey. You might want to interview people, and you might want to look at other forms of data as well. That's up to you what you do. If I was doing one myself, I would almost certainly do a survey of some sort, whether it's some sort of type of interview type of survey where I'm just talking to people, or whether it's an actual SurveyMonkey or one of these other type of computer surveys where you can send it to a bunch of people. And I'd want to do that to and collect data from the actual performers. Who's actually doing the job that I'm looking at, that I'm concerned about? Who are the people that should be performing there and that aren't, or maybe they're underperforming? Those are the people you want to find out from. What are the causes? And in terms of the gap analysis, a lot of times what I'd like to do is, for the desired performance, I'd like to interview the leadership. Why? Because that's part of leadership's role, is to establish what those goals for the organization are going to be. What should that performance look like, that desired performance? That would be a question for a supervisor, right? They should be able to tell us, well, this person at the Safeway cashier line, they should be friendly, they should be knowledgeable, they should be fast. And then you would get them to define that a little bit better. Well, what do you mean by fast? How quickly? Is there a way to quantify that? They might say, well, we want them to be able to ring up all the groceries and put them in the bags within 2 minutes. 2 minutes per person on average, or something to that effect. All right, I'm just seeing a note here from Zoom. 1 second. All right. All right. So once you do your analysis, then you got to sit down and write up your report. This is pretty much a review. You know that it's worth a lot of points because it's a signature assignment. Should be in your e-portfolio or Portfolium. Grading rubric exists. It's on week 5 and 6. Additional guidance in this presentation. And that's not right. The due date should be the last day of the course, which I believe is May 13th. No, March 13th. Or whatever that Friday is. Let's see. Okay, for the outline, it should have an executive summary, which basically summarizes the entire report. And then for the body of the report, you should have your project overview, your methodology, your procedures. You can pull that right from the Chevalier material. and what you did to collect data. In other words, did you do a survey? Did you do interviews? Whatever it was. And then, of course, you're going to have your findings and recommendations. So the last day of this course is the 15th, so that's when the report would be due. I should say the 15th right there. Some areas to focus on when you actually feel like you're doing your report, or when you're done with your report and you want to review it and ask yourself these questions about you address these points. And that's about it. Do I have any questions about the assignment? No questions? All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.